Hi, Corky Kessler, a principal in the law firm of Deutsch, Levy and Engel in Chicago, and I thank Permax Films, the Hyatt, Montague, GTV, SRG Accountants. Um, this is probably by accident become one of the moderating panels that I'm most proud of, because for certainly not by design, but by happenstance, which is a very good thing, I become the poster man for moderating many women in film panels all over the globe. Um, to say that it's not needed would be an understatement. To say that women are not equally treated in the business is probably something that is the most often overlooked matter in the film business. To the extent that the ACLU and several organizations in the United States have tried and thinking of bringing a lawsuit against the studios for systematically discriminating against women in film. So when I had the pleasure of speaking to 140 women at a Women in Media conference in Provincetown, Massachusetts, I sort of said to them, even if you win, it's a nice victory, but it doesn't matter anymore. To help you, because the studios, even though they were systematically discriminated, they're not making that many movies and aren't making very many decisions anymore. This is an independent film world, and you got to get to those independent producers. So let's start from my right. Kate, do you want to tell everyone who you are and a little about you?
Hi, my name is Kate Peroti, and I own Edendale Pictures, and I'm a producer and a director, and I'm finally in production on one of my favorite subjects about Jane Scott, who was a glass ceiling breaker in 1964 at age 45. She was the world's first rock critic for a major U.S. publication, the Cleveland Plain Dealer. And that world is very similar to women in film because it was the boys' club only, and she held on and became, like I said, the world's first rock critic and interviewed anyone you could think of for the next 45 years until she retired in 2001. So I'm just proud to say that right off because I just started production after 6 years of research, and I'm just psyched to be promoting her as part of this because she is one of these people that we need to hear about. She's a hidden figure.
Good. Blythe?
Blythe Frank. I'm an independent producer based in New York City. I also have a partner who's based in Los Angeles. We have a material servicing company. So we basically work with producers and handle all the delivery elements for the sales companies and the distributors. And it's the way that we can keep the lights on while we're developing the projects that we really care about. Because one of the things that I've learned in my tenure, I've made about 6 films over the last 15 years, is that when you add in the element of desperation into getting something made, nothing good comes of it. So we found a balance between something that is a needed and overlooked piece of the chain of delivery in the industry, and then we're able to, in a more holistic and grounded way, we develop the projects that we really care about and find the partners that we really want to be working with.
Okay, Nancy?
I am the president of Tennessee Women in Film and Media, which is the state organization for the state of Tennessee. We also have a branch in Memphis and are developing in Knoxville and Chattanooga. I also have the pleasure of being a member of the board of Women in Film and Television International, which is 14,000 women in 40 countries. And I'm a writer by trade, and I'm working on 2 projects right now, one that's taken a little over 7 years. It's a project based in World War II that will be a Japanese-American production, hopefully.
Well, you're certainly not going to go to China, probably. Okay, Christin.
Hi, I'm Christin Baker. I'm a director and a producer.
I would say an award-winning.
Oh, yes. I'm award-winning and Emmy-nominated director and producer. I've been in web content and also doing pilot concepts for the last 10 years. So my website, tellofilms.com, is a hyper niche website, and we make content specifically for the lesbian community. So all of our projects have female leads. And all of our projects are produced by women. We have a couple of male directors in there and a couple of male writers, but otherwise we're, I think, what IMDb terms a 4F project for at least over 50% of what's on our site.
Wow. Nancy.
Noemi, you mean?
All right. Noemi.
Right, now we are. So I'm Noemi Weis, and I have a pleasure of being here, Corky. It's always fun to be surrounded by all these beautiful and talented women and have a really good debate that maybe a voice that we can bring to the world. I've been in communications all my life, come from the advertising world, and in 98, almost 20 years ago, I had a dream of creating a company that will put people together when the world globalization did not exist and when the internet was not even a dream, maybe, that we all knew, but someone was dreaming about that. And I created a company that would allow creative people to feel free and create their ideas so I could go out and produce them for them. And doing that, I created associations with over 20 markets from around the world. Everybody thought that I was crazy. They could not understand the concept. And now we just finished hearing for the last 2 hours how all of the productions are co-productions and how we are bringing all this world together. So it was a vision. With the same vision, I wanted to tell stories that would change the world or at least impact the world. So in 2004, I started writing and creating and producing documentaries in human rights and social issues. And I've been doing that since then. I produced 8 films that have created actually quite a lot of impact in communities around the world. I'm proud to say that films can make a difference if you have a story to tell and if you are passionate about it. So that's what I'm up to. Just got pregnant with my next film. I'm having morning sickness through the development of it, so I'm now launching the development of the new film, and since we are in a women and film panel, I thought that that would be interesting for everybody to relate to, and continuing to bring the stories to the world that can actually help people and bring the voices of the voiceless as much as I can.
Noemi, you did a movie that I'm very happy to say touched lives all over the world. Would you tell them about your movie?
Yeah, my latest film, Milk, has given me, we talk about having children every time we make a film. Milk has given me the most satisfaction so far in terms of impact. The other ones have made quite a lot of impact. But it is about the commercialization of birth and infant feeding, and it follows stories from mothers from around the world. I shot in 11 countries and in 35 cities, uniting the voices of women in the notion of motherhood, and bringing the fact that motherhood has no borders, motherhood has no language barriers, has no economic background, and it has made an impact. I had the privilege in the last little while to have created presentations of the film in association with local communities in over 110 countries, done over 300 to 500 maybe by now. I stopped the count of community screenings supported by UNICEF, the World Health Organizations, and many, many organizations, local NGOs that believe in protecting the lives of moms and babies.
How many people are currently following you in the social marketplaces?
Social media has been the basis of all of this. It's a great platform that we have. I would have loved to have the budget of marketing. We just heard how important it is to have a marketing budget. We went grassroots. I would have loved, having been in the ad business, to have the budget to go and buy billboards and transit shelters.
So how many people?
So, according to the latest metrics, we reached 127 million people that are talking about milk.
Yeah, I mean, Christin, I have to tell you that I executive produced the first positive gay content movie
Yes.
I ever made.
Yeah.
It was called The Sum of Us. It was in 1994. It starred Russell Crowe and Jack Thompson, and it took me a long time to get that movie made. In fact, at some point, people told me, have it changed to an American movie, but they're not gay. I mean, content. But, it went on to win the Academy Award in Australia for Best Picture. It was the largest grossing film in the history.
Yeah.
It's uniquely the film that I'm most proud of doing, because it cut the cord of something that had to be cut. But what it did for me is it had me invited to every lesbian, gay content panel, thinking that I was a spokesman for
You're
every
an honorary.
gay
You're
and
an honorary lesbian, Corky.
Look. First of all, do you have any questions? Anyone here have any questions? This is something that is very near and dear to me, and principally, I think, because I have a daughter, and the daughter, my daughter, although I have a son too, but my daughter is a very special person, and barriers to my daughter would have no place in my mind. So I want to turn to Blythe. How do you address that? How do you break that glass ceiling? How do you as a woman sort of address that elephant that's in the room when you go to have meetings and things?
I think I ignore it. I mean, I think that and it's just been something endemic to me personally my entire life, that I don't really recognize that there are any barriers, and I think it hasn't held me back, and just continuing to put myself out there and keep marching the work forward no matter what. Just keep your eye on the work. I can track that, probably 95% of all the meetings that I've had are with men. And I'm on a phone call and they're with men. But there's starting to be this emergence of more and more women. And when I find them, I try to align myself with them and bring them into the universe of, where I'm working, because there is a kindredship and there is an innate understanding. But I think, I think that as long as we're human beings in the room, it's not about gender. You have to just show up and make sure the work is getting done and keep it moving forward.
Well, without a political statement, I can tell you that 8,000 women marched right before Sundance in Park City, which is a considerable amount for Park City. 250,000 women in Chicago marched. And I think it's uniquely in this political climate, equally more important for all the women to stand up in the United States, especially, and be counted. We are not in such a society today that we have the political climate of major supporters. So we have to be more vigilant and continue to address it. Kate, how did you pick your topic? Okay, go ahead.
Well, no, just one comment is I think we first should acknowledge Canada and thank Canada for their mandate that you have here, the gender parity in your productions and broadcasting. It just started.
It hasn't been executed yet, it just started.
But that's a start.
There have been instances, but it's not equal yet.
But it's on the books.
Started.
You have it on the books.
Yes.
And that's that's a huge thing, because the United States needs to look to Canada to make that happen. And that's part of what Corky was talking with this lawsuit that will be happening against Hollywood and the studio and their hiring practices.
Can I say something about Canada?
Yeah.
I was at the International Conference for Women in Film in May in London, and the representatives from Canada who were there were Vancouver, Toronto.
Eileen Hooter.
Yeah, she's from from
Vancouver.
Vancouver, and we had Toronto, and we had we had a representative from the yes, Atlantic provinces. And I'm trying to think of Susan, and I'm not sure where she's the president from, but she is one of the people who was advocating and was in Ottawa and advocated for years with this. And they marched and they talked and they went to the floor of the parliament. And when she announced that in front of the whole body, and she's crying as she's talking about it, was the idea that, okay, we've gone through one hurdle, but there's a lot more to cross. But we have high regard for them, for Canada, for the people that wanted to fight for this. I personally have high regard for a country who lowers the flag at half-mast every year for a tragedy, yes, but it's in support of women who have suffered from domestic violence. And if every country did that, I think that would be a really great thing. I know it's not to do with film, but those are things to admire.
Any other comments?
Well, it has to do with film too, because domestic violence is a big topic in films, and can actually make a difference if anyone wants to take that. I've done a film about domestic violence a number of years ago, and it never dies, unfortunately. So we continue to have the flag there and continuing to bring that message. So all of those messages that affect violence independently of gender, I think have to be addressed.
And you see the NFL and all the sports organizations for the first time in the United States are having a no tolerance clause in all of the athletes' contracts. And the domestic violence, even if it's the star of the team, that person is no longer playing the sport that they've been in. And there have been appeals and there have been protests, but we have to draw the line. There's a question.
Yes, I had the privilege and pleasure of working with the filmmakers from Nollywood, Nigeria, last year. Learned a lot about an industry that was off my radar. Majority of the filmmakers were women, writers, directors, producers, leading actors. And I questioned a couple of them about the issues in North America about women getting the opportunity. And they kind of went, huh, why? Yeah. It's weird that the women from a country in Africa are leading the way in making films.
Well, because they don't even think that it's an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, to them it's not. I remember on my first movie, again, the Sum of Us, we had an all-women film crew. This is 1994. We had an all-women film crew. And I looked at it and I said, that's really something. That is something that in 1994 you'd ever see in the United States. Yes.
Just want to do some continuation of what you're talking about. If it's the same woman, Ilsa, from Sweden, who went to Nigeria and trained the women there to actually shoot and tell their own stories. This brings up, to me, a very important issue of mentorship and women helping other women.
Absolutely.
And as a woman who's worked in the industry for 20 years now, I've fought to be able to bring women into situations where I was blocked when I was producing from bringing women in. So it's been so hard to bring up the whole issue of mentoring, because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. People don't just start. I mean, they do, but it's a very complicated industry, and we need to help each other, and it is starting to happen.
But as I saw in Provincetown, you don't bash men who are sensitive to your cause. But they did. And the talk of a lot of women in Provincetown were by, we got to stand together and to the exclusion of men. And I said to the featured speaker, who was the one that really said that, I said, you had a great speech, but you didn't have to bash us, because you're going to bash men who are your supporters to an extent that they just don't want to do it. What we have to be conscious of, and by the way, I have so many great women that come to Sundance that I have to have two panels because there's too many to put on one. And it's amazing. The women that are on this podium, especially, and women that are on and standing up for it, but when you see women that used to run studios in Hollywood, it was not on their radar. They didn't see the need to help other women. And I couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand why major heads of studios who were female didn't see a need for trying to get some parity. And it is something that I think has to happen. We have to say to ourselves, parity. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be in a week or 2 weeks. But for the women that are out there, they have to stand up and be accounted for. Kate?
No, and I just want to. I want to add something to that. But I was in Provincetown. There was not male bashing. They were trying to be inclusive. And that I don't want to argue about that because I completely respect you, but it was about inclusive, not exclusive, because everybody knows that. And then just to add to that, I just want to say one of the people I think that is one of just the groundbreakers, and she's doing it just because she can, is Meg Ellison, who runs Annapurna Pictures, and she has now just hired Chelsea Barnard as her head of production, and she's one of those people, she doesn't need to do anything, but she is just making great films, and she's actually one of the forward-thinking people, bringing parity, saving little companies. She's just doing what she can because she can.
I also want to give a quick shout out as far as in television. You have people like Ava DuVernay and Oprah Winfrey on their project, Queen Sugar. 100% of the directors for the episodes are women.
And I know Natalie Bazile, the writer,
A Will and Orange is the New Black is a female-driven television series.
Yes, yeah. Gingy Cohen's done great things too.
There are, but the fact that we need to point it out.
I know, yeah.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But it should be like you just said. That it's not on their radar. We don't even think about it. We shouldn't, think about it.
But until we had the data, like I feel like people probably could anecdotally talk about women in film, but it wasn't until organizations like the Gina Davis Institute came up and said, here are the numbers, here's what we're seeing, here's the lack of, not just female directors and female-led, with Alison Bechdel and the Bechdel test coming out, like these have been things that have kind of happened recently that have been at least so that all of our eyes are open to the disparity. So we could say like, oh, that was a really hard meeting that I went to with this producer, and maybe Corky didn't have that, as an example, didn't have that same issue. But until we actually pulled back and saw the numbers, I feel like that's been a big game changer to kind of say, there's something unbelievably wrong.
Well, and I said that I don't know who to go to get a female DP. Wait. So I don't have a database.
Kate Kaminsky finally just started one.
Okay, so I don't have a database because I have filmmakers, male filmmakers that want to hire women directors, women DPs, women line producers, women, but I don't know how to find them. Okay, I know, but why just started? I don't understand that. This has been an issue for a very, very long time. They've known the problem for a very long time. I spoke, when I was at Cannes, that list and that database was supposed to be done for Cannes, and we were going to unfold it during Cannes, and that didn't happen. What?
Well,
Well, part of the reason, Corky, speaking to that directly, is that they wanted the list to be accurate and complete. So they've gone back to making sure every eye is, they really feel really importantly about this as a women in film. But I also want to say that the Annenberg study, which comes out of USC in partnership with Gina Davis and Women in Film, comes out once a year, and it is the Bible in terms of what the statistics are for women. The majority of roles to women, hands down, almost 2 to 1, are women that are hookers or lovers, or they're in their underwear. That's the majority of roles. There 4% of the roles in 2016 were for women in every phase of camera. 2009, which is surprising to everybody, is when Catherine Bigelow won. 2009 is about 10 years ago, and everybody thought, it's fine now, she's won. But the fact is that we've gone backwards. Between 2015 and the end of 2016, women have lost 2% of where they were. And it's everybody's issue, because it's true that women have stories to tell. They have a unique perspective based on who they are, living their life to take a picture, to be behind the camera. And the way that the Annenberg, when it says, what can we do? They said one of the things that's the most simple is you talk to every screenwriter and you say, add 5 parts in there for women. They only have to have 1 line necessarily, but add 5 parts into your thing. And by 10 years, we will have equity. That's simple.
Come on, Noemi.
Well, I don't believe in gender differentiation. I never had an issue like you were saying. I just went where I needed to go, and I never thought, am I a woman or I'm not a woman? So I encourage everybody to do that. I've always done it. I've been in boardrooms in that were all men. I've been in trade missions with the Canadian government where there were 100 people, of which 99 were men, and I was the only woman. It was a little bit intimidating at first to see all the blue suits, but soon I got over it. I think that if you have something to say, if you can show your talent, people will respect you for who you are, and I think that that's what we have to do. We talked about it many times. We talked about it in the panel at Cannes. I think it's outdated to be talking about gender. I think we need to talk about talent. You need a talented person, then look for that person irrespectively of her gender or his gender. I think that it's so difficult to make a film that we should not even be thinking that it's just women or men. When I was doing Milk, I had an issue. I had to look for a DP that was a woman because a lot of the women wanted just a woman in the room, and I understood that. It was very private. I was shooting very intimate moments of birth. It was very difficult to find women DPs here in Canada, as equal as we all are. There's 5 or 6 talented ones, or at least that will provide what I was looking for. So we just need to encourage people to show their talent and forget about gender. I love men and I love women. I love talented people. Let's just proclaim for that.
There is a question. They say, "Do the brain has a gender?"
Does
the brain have a gender?
Does the brain? No.
I say no.
No. But and that goes to the situation that you're not going to change a story to put a woman in a role that is not a woman's role. So you're not going to retrofit a story about John Glenn and have John Glenn be a female. I mean, but we have to be mindful of yes.
I do want to comment, and it's kind of a question with a comment.
Well, go ahead. You can ask it.
I've been at Fantasia Film Festival, and the big box office hit is Wonder Woman, and how it's been blowing box office records with a female star and a female director. And everyone's amazed that a female director can do an action adventure movie. What I want to see more of, and why I think it's important to have women, and I want to find out what you all think, is that the roles for most women, and we touched on it, but we really didn't dive deep into it. The way that women are portrayed is grossly skewed when women are not writing and producing and directing.
Well,
That's very
but
true.
look
That's
at
very true.
look at what someone said about the kind of roles that women get, and all right. So two films that come to mind: Black Swan. Look at the character that she portrayed, but she got an Academy Award for her Monster Ball. Look at the character she portrayed, but there was someone at Sundance on the Women in Film panel who said that I'm a person who they hired to be a supervisor for major action shots. Kathy Jarvis.
Yeah.
And she said, when I get in the wardrobe, when they put a dress on me, who's not supposed to wear a dress, I know
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna get
die.
killed.
Yeah.
So
Been
it's
killed
just-
today. Platform shoes.
So final comment, Kate.
Well, but it is, I know I might be exploding one more thing, but there's like now they're making Lord of the Flies, two guys, the partners, they're making it happen with all women. And I just thought that was an odd thing. I don't know if you've heard about that. But, so yeah, they're just trying to remap, and it's like two guys who are writing it, so I will get in trouble, I'm sure, at some point for saying that. But my final comment is, I agree, everybody needs to work together. It's not about being exclusive. It's about talent, pushing your projects forward, letting the stories be told, because there's just so many people in the world, there's so many stories. It just needs to happen, and it needs to happen a lot quicker than a lot of us would like, meaning like we need to just all be in production.
Okay, Blythe?
I guess just building on that a little bit, what I was thinking about is there needs to be more authentic voices, and that's not male or female, but as women, we just need to get out there and trust ourselves, tell our stories, be true to ourselves. Don't think about yourselves as a matter. Everyone's journey in life is unique, but we need to have more voices out there without trying to be someone else. And I think the more that the voices join in the conversation expands.
No matter how enthusiastic I sounded when talking about the reports, which are, again, the Annenberg report by Stacey L. Smith out of USC, the Bunch report out of UCLA. Both of those feed into the Gina Davis report. Those are important statistics just to see where we are, test the temperature of the marketplace. But that all being said, I'm really encouraged about all the women wanting to work together, wanting to collaborate and work for each other. This young lady right here, who I'm lucky enough to as a board member, she also won Rain Dance for the best directing this year for a series. So these things are being recognized, and it's by people who just do the work, who work. We want to work, we want to do the work, tell stories, shoot, shoot, shoot. Right. That's my final word.
It's unfortunate that we're obviously having to have this conversation. The other part of it is that this industry is not unique in its lack of diversity. I mean, everyone knows about the Google memo that went out and women in tech. I mean, you can look at a lot of the industries and see not gender parity. I think what's exciting to me about this, as Noemi mentioned, is the difference that we can make as filmmakers. We can start to show little girls Wonder Woman, and to show them powerful women that aren't getting killed, that aren't prostitutes, that are board women and that are on the board and who are doctors. And so the nice thing is in the industry that we're in, we can make a massive difference in shifting this for everyone.
There was Hidden Figures.
Yes.
What was it? Naomi.
I think everybody should follow their passions. Forget about gender right now. I think that it's completely outdated. The word feminism, someone should hire an ad agency to rebrand the word feminism and call it somewhere else. I think that we've got to be passionate about what we are doing. There's an enormous amount of talent out there. Not let anything stop anyone because of a gender equality. And I hope that when we meet again, we are going to progress into the next level, and we're not going to be talking about this anymore, and we're going to say, we made a great film. Let's talk about the impact that we have created in the society. What have we changed with that? How many minds have actually implemented changes because of what we told them in our story? And that's my wish to everybody. Just keep on going and telling stories.
My final comment is a neutral one. In the New York Times, there was an article that said that talked about the following: the ratings in Rotten Tomato as to films has driven, according to the studios, their box office down 15%. So I, first of all, I find that very interesting. But there was a movie here. I won't name the title, but it had major stars and three great writers, or two great writers, and I looked at Rotten Tomato the next morning, and I think it was 37. So we'll see what the box office does as relates to Rotten Tomatoes. But this conversation, unfortunately, when some of us meet again at Sundance in January, will probably continue. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Corky.